Welcome to Rate the Audits, where we put misconduct on display, explore police and legal content, protect rights and demand accountability. In the early hours of July 17, 2021, Brighton's seafront became the backdrop for yet another scandal that would further tarnish the already crumbling reputation of the Metropolitan Police Service. This is the case of Laurence Knight, a police sergeant who was supposed to uphold the law but instead became the very thing he was meant to protect the public from. His crime exemplifies the deep-rooted issues within the Met: abuse of power, entitlement, and a culture of silence that enables these offences. It is yet another example of how systemic failures allow such misconduct to persist unchecked. Before I start, I would greatly appreciate if you could like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. On what should have been an ordinary stag night, Laurence Knight, a 34-year-old officer, found himself spiraling into something far more sinister. Dissatisfied with the night's proceedings, Knight was restless. He had already been enjoying a mix of private entertainment and bar hopping, but as the evening wore on, he wanted more. More than just a few drinks, more than just a wild night. He sought something that would leave a permanent scar on his victim. It was during this time that Knight encountered a woman in the city centre. She and a friend, showing kindness, offered to guide him and his companions to bars that were still open along the beachfront. They had no reason to suspect that the man they were speaking to was a dangerous predator. After all, he was a police officer, a person meant to serve and protect. But as we've seen time and time again, the uniform is no guarantee of morality. As they reached the beach, Knight persuaded the woman to join him for a swim in the sea. Stripping down to their underwear, they waded into the water together. But beneath the cover of darkness, Knight revealed his true nature. He sexually assaulted her in the sea, ignoring her desperate pleas to stop. A law enforcement officer abusing his power, demonstrating the very misconduct he was meant to prevent. What is most chilling about this attack is the location. Isolated in the dead of night, surrounded by the vast emptiness of the sea, a calculated move ensuring his victim had no escape. The impact of Knight's assault was immediate. The victim, shaken and traumatized, emerged from the sea in distress. Her friend, recognizing the severity of the situation, contacted the police. When officers arrived, they found her crying, hyperventilating, a broken person, violated by someone who was meant to serve and protect. How could she trust the very institution that her attacker belonged to? Would she even be believed? Knight, of course, attempted to downplay his actions. In court, he dismissed it as a bit of last-minute fun before his wedding, a chilling testament to his entitlement and lack of accountability. That phrase alone speaks volumes about the culture that breeds men like him within the police force. The belief that he could get away with it, that he would not face consequences. After all, how many others before him had been protected by the system? The legal repercussions were significant, but arguably not severe enough. Laurence Knight was convicted of sexual assault and sentenced to just 2 years in prison, a mere fraction of what his victim will endure for the rest of her life. He was also placed on the sex offenders register for 10 years and given a restraining order. But let's be honest, does that really address the root problem? Does that sentence fit the crime? The justice system, like the Met, has repeatedly failed victims by prioritizing its own reputation. Internal protections, lengthy legal hurdles, and a culture that shields misconduct have created an environment where true accountability is rare. Following his conviction, Knight resigned from the Met, but a subsequent misconduct hearing confirmed what should have been obvious. Had he not stepped down, he would have been dismissed without notice. He was forced out, but what about those still wearing the badge, committing crimes under its protection? Laurence Knight's case is not unique. It is yet another entry on the long and ever-growing list of police misconduct cases plaguing the Metropolitan Police Service. From Wayne Couzens, the officer who kidnapped and murdered Sarah Everard, to David Carrick, a serial rapist who remained in the force for 2 decades despite multiple warnings, the Met has repeatedly failed to police itself. These recurring scandals prove that the problem is not about a few bad individuals, but a deeply entrenched failure within the institution itself. This force, the largest in the UK, has been exposed time and again for fostering a culture of misogyny, racism, and abuse. The Met's legal expenses have skyrocketed, with millions being paid out in settlements for misconduct cases. These are taxpayers' pounds, your money, being used to clean up the disgraceful actions of officers who should never have been allowed to serve. Addressing systemic failures in recruitment and oversight is crucial to preventing individuals like Laurence Knight from becoming police officers. What specific measures can be implemented to ensure that the Met does not continue to harbour predators in its ranks? Firstly, Recruitment and vetting need a complete overhaul. Stringent background checks, psychological assessments, and strict monitoring must be mandatory. Secondly, the culture within the police force must change. Misogyny and abuse cannot be excused as banter. There needs to be a safe reporting system where officers and the public can expose wrongdoings without fear of retaliation. Thirdly, accountability needs to be immediate and uncompromising. If an officer is suspected of misconduct, suspension should be automatic, with a full investigation to follow. The case of Laurence Knight is yet another reminder that the Metropolitan Police Service is failing to protect the public from its own ranks. How many more cases need to surface before genuine reform takes place? How many more victims need to suffer before the system takes action? Citizens must pressure their representatives for legislative reforms, demand increased transparency in police misconduct cases, and support independent oversight bodies. The press must continue to expose corruption and misconduct, ensuring accountability is not avoided. Lawmakers must introduce stricter vetting, harsher penalties for officers who abuse their power, and enforce mandatory cultural reforms within the police force. If the Met makes these suggested changes, then maybe we might actually see real change take place. But until then, its failures will continue to define it. That's it for this one. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Let me know what you want to see next. This is Rate the Audits. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.